Hello, my name is Madeline Carew, and I prepared a seminar presentation on education for women in relation to the novel A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. Before diving into the thesis, we must first gather a bit of background knowledge on women's education. Women's rights are different all over the world, and this applies to the right to an education. However, many girls and women all over the world don't have the opportunity to pursue this. Let's start with the history of women's education in Afghanistan. So women were encouraged to marry young and have a family rather than pursue an education, and education was seen as more suitable for boys and men. Under the Taliban especially, the Taliban set laws that women could not be seen without a man, show skin, or attend school, and the Taliban would severely punish any woman who disobeyed these laws. Like everywhere in the world, the oppression of women was prevalent throughout history. Women gained rights and were given many of the same opportunities as men throughout time. When the Taliban took over, women's rights were revoked and their status returned to what it had been for past centuries. Women continue to be afraid of getting education and pursuing their goals due to cultural norms. As you can see, here's a timeline of the evolution of women's rights over the years in Afghanistan. So for this project, my thesis is, education should be a fundamental right for all human beings. However, unfortunately, this is not the case for many women around the world. The level of education of which a woman is allowed to achieve is dictated by wealth, the men of the family, and the government. I personally am a firm believer that you don't need money to be successful in life. However, it is no secret that money and wealth can be important factors in the opportunities you are presented with. Wealthy families will have the resources to be able to send their children to school and pay for an education. Generally, parents coming from richer families are also educated people, and they recognize the value of a good education for both boys and girls. On the other hand, families with less money may not have the opportunity to pay for their children's higher education, and in a lot of countries, the little money they do have will be used to support a man's education rather than a woman's. In countries where arranged marriage is still prevalent, families with less money, families with less money may rely on the shared wealth that comes from marrying off a daughter or even selling their daughter in exchange for livestock or other goods. So you may be asking, how does this relate to A Thousand Splendid Suns? Well, in the novel, Miriam is being taught the Quran by Mullah Faizullah, one of the most influential people in her life. Miriam and her mother Nana are not wealthy whatsoever. Before Miriam, Nana was a housekeeper, and she didn't make much money and didn't come from an educated background. Miriam expressed interest in going to school to learn, but Nana says that there is no use in going to school. Unlike Miriam's half-siblings who live with her father and are wealthy, and they get to attend school, Miriam is poor and she lives in a hut with her mother. When Nana says women like us should not be going to school, she means poor nobodies that nobody cares about. And in saying this, Nana is saying that poor women shouldn't get an education and they should just learn to endure life until they die. Next, we have the role of male figures in education. So male figures are often seen as the people in charge of the family, traditionally. The father, for instance, is traditionally someone who would make big decisions back in the day. Fathers of daughters often dictate whether they can or cannot go to school, depending on a few factors. Firstly, the father may require his daughters to stay at home to help out their mother and learn their cultural values as women and their roles in a family. Secondly, in other cultures, fathers marry off their daughters at young ages, which keeps them from pursuing a higher education. Another male figure in a woman's life is a brother. So the son of the family is generally prioritized in a lot of cultures, and they're generally given more opportunities than the sister. In some countries, it is cultural belief that the son will carry on the family name, and so it's his job to get a good job so he can support his family, whereas women is expected that they need to be supported and are expected to complete mindless tasks such as cooking and cleaning, taking care of their families, those kind of household duties. So in A Thousand Splendid Suns, there's a passage, and we can see that Bobby, Layla's father, is a firm believer that women should have the right to an education. He wants to help his daughter learn and wants to challenge her with extra work. And Bobby pushes Layla to seize her opportunities to go to school, and he encourages her to be the best that she can be and achieve greatness. Finally, we have the role of the government in education. So in Afghanistan, before the Taliban took over, women's rights were growing as shown in the timeline at the beginning of this presentation. Schools for girls were built, and the government encouraged girls and women to pursue a higher education and get good jobs rather than having to be a housewife. When the Taliban took over, they restored Afghanistan to its old traditions. Women were stripped of all of their rights. They were restricted from leaving their homes without a man present, and they had to cover themselves from head to toe and were not allowed to speak unless spoken to. They were also forbidden from attending schools, and all of the schools that had been open for girls were either closed or destroyed. Anyone who broke these laws and tried to go to school or teach girls was severely physically punished, and more often than not, they were killed. After the Taliban were overtaken, women were still afraid to go to school, even though it's now allowed. To this day, more than 2/3 of women and girls in Afghanistan don't go to school just because it's not a top priority, and once again, they are still quite scared. So, in this first quotation, Babi is talking to Layla about women's rights, and he's telling that under the communist regime, women have more freedom to choose their own path. So, this is an example of where the government is allowing girls to go to school. So, more specifically in this passage, he's making reference to the right to an education. Then, in the second passage, it's depicted what it's like for Layla to go to school during the war. So, due to governmental disputes and uprising, it becomes way too dangerous for Layla to leave the house. And so, eventually her father says, Layla, I'm sorry, due to, the government and what's going on right now in our country, you can't go to school anymore, which really sucks. And then later on in the novel, this does not apply to Layla herself. However, the Taliban do take over, and under the Taliban's regime, there's a law that women are not allowed to go to school, like I previously said. So this is also a prevalent theme in the novel. So for my outside source, I have a video, and this video showcases a school for girls in Afghanistan that goes against the Taliban's regime. These girls and their teachers risk their lives every single day so that they can pursue an education. This is a school open for girls anywhere, so there are buses that bring girls from their hometowns to the school, and sometimes these buses get attacked, they get bombed. It's really dangerous because it's illegal for girls to get an education. But this video really highlights the importance of a women's education and the lengths that some people will go to ensure that women have this opportunity, because they so strongly believe that women should have the opportunity to be educated just as much as men do.
It's a place offering more than these girls know. A quality education in real, tangible skills. A path away from poverty and early marriage and towards university and a career. Since 2002, the Kandahar Institute of Modern Studies has been teaching young women subjects like languages, science, management and computer skills. They're skills that speak of ambition, which in the heart of Taliban country is remarkable, and, says their head teacher, Emanuela Ehsan, dangerous.
We are a unique school. Our school is preparing women to go to jobs. Our school is preparing women to go to universities. Our school is preparing women to take part. Here, the conservatives are opposite to the idea that women come out and play a role in the public.
The journey to school is risky for these young women. Those coming from villages travel in covered trucks. Even buses for city-based girls have been attacked. Few here believe they will stop arriving.
We look forward many other girls to come, and still they are coming. They will come. If they are not coming now, they will come, and their parents will let them to get education.
But after surviving conservative hardliners for so long, it's money problems that will likely end these girls' studies.
One of the girls' favourite subjects by far are computer skills. There's plenty of computers in this school, and these classes are extremely popular. The girls are learning to use the internet as well as use various spreadsheets and programs like that for future employment. But this room in here used to be the most special classroom of the school. Here they had a pioneering project where girls would Skype online with volunteer teachers in the US. Those running the school now say that they can no longer afford internet at that high speed and that they've had to cancel the project.
Funding from abroad has dried up. As international forces leave Afghanistan, much of the aid that came with them is disappearing. This month, The teachers have agreed to forfeit their salaries, but that won't fill the gap.
Unless we get funding, we are going to close all these women. Today you saw in the classes, that's going to close.
Asan says he now has to charge the girls $1 a day. Several hundred have dropped out, unable to afford it. The lucky ones still here return to their conservative lives each day, unsure if the next one will offer so much promise. Jane Ferguson, Al Jazeera, Kandahar, Afghanistan.
So in conclusion, I just want to add a little quote. Hillary Clinton once said that the access to an education is a basic right. Although it's a common belief that all human beings should have the right to an education, it's not really the case all over the world. Oftentimes, women are not presented with the same opportunities to educate themselves as men, and this is primarily due to their family wealth, the role of male figures in their lives, and the government. To finish off, I have 3 discussion questions. So first off, do you think that it is right for education to be withheld from women who want it solely because it is their culture, what their culture believes? If you were a woman in a situation where you were told you could no longer go to school, do you think you would choose to risk your life like the women in the video? Finally, what reasons can you think of for why government would want to prohibit women from getting an education? Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a deeper understanding of education for women throughout the world.